All right, let's continue this conversation from Eagle Global Market Trading Platform here, talking about financial technology. And my guest is Gbite Oduneye, CEO, AOA Investment Group, and co-founder, Eagle Global Market. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Frank.
Okay, let's start with this question. There's been a lot of talks about around fintech, financial technology, and of course it's gradually gaining penetration, okay, in the Nigerian market. What exactly, let's start from there, is fintech or financial technology?
Well, just as as the name suggests, it's technology enhancing or making financial services much easier, much better. I mean, technology is not new in financial services, and there's been technology from the dawn of financial services. But the sort of technology that exists today, or the sort of technology that has come around today, is making it easier to deliver financial services to the general populace. So what fintech really is just using technology to deliver financial services products to the general populace and to a market that was being difficult or expensive to deliver things to.
Okay, let us quickly look at these. What's the level of acceptance now? Of course, we know that a lot of innovations are ongoing in that sector. So what is the level of acceptance now? New innovation, emerging technologies every day in the Nigerian market.
So if you think about it, globally, we're seeing a 45% increase year on year on investments in financial technology. I think 2017 was 10.3 billion US dollars that was invested, and that's been growing rapidly.
That's huge.
Yes, huge, massive. And the reason for it is quite clear. I mean, the world and business models are changing with technology. And we have seen, in terms of user experience, that has changed rapidly with the introduction of technology. What technology is supposed to do are some basic things. It's meant to make things more transparent for the retail client. So the client should not have any hidden charges. It's meant to make the user experience better than what the client is currently experiencing or what he's expected to experience. Right? So once you have transparency, you have better user experience and transparency, and then you then provide a service that is personalized. The service seems as if it is made for the individual client. And you couple all of that with value, meaning it's not as expensive to deliver this service to the client. Now, those are the sort of things that financial technology is supposed to do. I'll give you a general example. A little while ago, it would have been extremely difficult for me to reach all my clients. I would have to call all my clients if I wanted to get a message or a new strategy across.
All right.
But now, I can connect and interact with my clients much faster, much better than I can ever do it before. I can have their general opinion on things in very, very quick time, meaning I can serve them better. If I understand my client better, I can serve my client better. I think the general shift, one of the major shifts, I mean, it's always been about the customer in financial services, but now it's a more personalized service to the customer. And financial technology enables us to provide this personalized service to a customer at a fraction of the cost that it would have costed previously. So what it's doing, what financial technology is going to do, is going to offer more improved service to the general clientele. It should improve financial inclusion. I know we've been going on about that quite a bit, and we just concluded a market day workshop hosted by the Nigerian Stock Exchange, where a lot of the conversations there was to do with financial inclusion. How do we get the larger populace to be involved in financial markets? They mentioned some key facts. One of them being that only 24% of people in Nigeria have phones where they can download apps. So in as much as we bang on about financial technology, right, there's a lot of education that needs to be done to make people aware. But there's no fear in that, because I'm sure if you see a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old with a laptop or an iPad, it's completely mesmerizing what they're able to do.
That's right.
So what the general populace will be able to do, the more they have access to the internet and to technology, right? The more they have access to it, the better they will become in handling this technology, which will provide unlimited productivity, to our GDP as a nation, will provide unlimited possibilities to how companies, technology companies or general companies, can provide services to the general populace.
I'm going to talk about, later on, we're going to talk about challenges and facing the sector at the moment, and of course some players like you, what you're doing to solve that challenge. But there's been a lot of talks about also the disruption that these will create in the financial sector, especially in the Nigerian market.
Yeah.
Could you perhaps, maybe you need to explain that to us, what kind of disruption,
well, how
significantly these disruptions will be on the financial market?
I think disruption is, I mean, it's a fair word to use. It's a word that I suppose is more relevant in Western markets, more developed markets. And the reason for that is that there are a number of people that are already accessing financial markets, be it insurance, banking, access to capital already. And what technology is doing is changing the way people in the West use financial services. In Africa, the amount of people that are involved in the financial markets or financial services is not as much. So disruption is it's one of those words that I'm not particularly sure if it pertains to us here, because we're at the early stages. Disruption was what Guaranty Trust Bank did a very long time ago when they introduced some sorts of technology to gain traction in the market. But where we are now, in the general market, what financial technology will do would be to put the retail client first. So if you're a bank, for example, you will be disrupted if you don't take very good care of your clients. If you don't understand your clients in detail, understand their wants, their needs, you don't provide them with a transparent service, a personalized service, someone who can do that will come and disrupt your business. So really, disruption will come about when the existing players don't take advantage of the technology that a number of fintech companies will be using. I believe that it will completely change the game, completely. Because we're looking at another 20 to 30% of the general populace coming into the stock market, coming into insurance, being access to capital. Now, all these things are unprecedented. That, of course, will have an effect on GDP. It would definitely have an effect on us as a country. And realistically, as Mary Udok mentioned, the Acting General of the Security Exchange Commission, the financial services becomes much better. Policies surrounding financial services become much more sophisticated with the deeper the markets get. Meaning the more people that do participate in the markets would make regulating the market much easier, much better to understand. Now, financial technology is not going to come without its difficulties. The major things that are holding back, of course, would be things like internet access, power. But the most important thing would be changing consumer behavior, because that's the difficulty.
Because why I asked that question earlier is the thought is that a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, new innovation in the market, banks are going to downsize and all of that. So that's the reason why I...
Well, not necessarily. I mean, that has been a general fear. The reality is, if there's something that technology can do much better, much cheaper, and much better, much cheaper, then there's no point in no business. A business is set up to create a profit, so there's no point in giving it out to someone if technology can do it cheaper. But there's this general feeling that as technology does come and it does take a number of jobs that can now be automated, what technology would do is that it would increase the GDP and it would increase what is going on in the economy. So the same way it takes away jobs in some places, it provides opportunities and jobs in another.
That's right.
5 years ago, there were no jobs in Nigeria in things like coding, in engineering and websites, a number of social media development. But that has brought in a complete, a brand new economy. So technology should not be feared. It would just make us much more productive, and especially in a continent where it's been difficult and expensive in the past to reach the general populace. I think it's not something that we should fear. I think it's something that we should embrace because it will make us definitely more innovative and more productive.
You talked earlier about the acting DG of SEC,
Yes.
talking about regulations and all of that. Are there regulations in place, to provide a very robust platform for players like you to thrive in the market?
I would be fair and say this: people like the Security Exchange Commission and the Nigerian Stock Exchange are doing a number of things. Globally, a number of all our large institutions and regulators are behind technology, because obviously technology moves much faster than they get into terms with it. But they've been fantastic with regards to what they're doing to develop the sector. I mean, the stock exchange, for example, has something called the Innovation Hub. Now, in the Innovation Hub, they're inviting fintech companies with fantastic ideas to come in and come under that umbrella. The Security Exchange Commission, for example, I mean, I'm on the committee for financial technology for SEC, which they're creating a sandbox to enable people with fantastic ideas to come under that sandbox. So they too would understand the business, understand the business, and to ensure that the business works, to enable them, regulate the sectors much better. For ourselves, we have been in talks with the regulator for a while, and we're very, very happy with the work which they're doing to ensure they're on top of things.
Okay, let's quickly take a moment to come back. We'll be taking a look at how do you think we can create opportunities, from different innovations in this market. Of course, you said earlier that they were just emerging, of course, evolving.
Yes.
Let me use that one. So I think that's the next question. That's what we'll be looking at now. Of course, I'm still reaching you from the Eagle Global Market Trading floor here. We'll take a moment now. We'll be back. Join us again. We're glad to have you back now. Still reaching you, broadcasting here from Eagle Global Markets Trading Platform in Southwest Eko, Lagos here. And my guest has been Gbite Oduneye. He's the CEO of an investment group and co-founder, Eagle Global Markets. Thank you for your time.
Cheers, Frank.
Let's quickly take a look at opportunities that we have in the financial market. How do you think we can create opportunities in this market using, of course, you have a bit of experience.
Already we've seen amazing things happen.
Okay.
I mean, we've seen companies come up providing loans. So we've seen companies using technology to provide loans to the general populace, a section that was not served. So access to loans is much easier. Technology is making us assess risk, much easier. There are platforms, there are algorithms that you can study clientele behavior. So we've got new payment platforms. We hear every day of some new companies raising $10, $13 million, doing some very exciting things. We've got banks serving their clients much better as a result of a number of these technologies. I mean, I'll give you an example, and I'll use Eagle Global Markets as an example. So many years ago, and for a while, the Nigerian market has been served by European brokers, very good European brokers. They provided the Nigerian clients the ability to trade global markets. But they've done this on an MT4 platform, which is a US dollar platform. Meaning that if you wanted to trade in real time any financial instrument in the world, you would have to convert your Naira into US dollars, put it onto the platform and trade. We do have that platform because it would be irresponsible for us not to, considering the general populace in Nigeria have that platform. That's right. Now we introduced something called the Cloud Trade platform. Our real innovation. The Cloud Trade platform is a Naira-based platform. It differs from MT4 in that it's a web browser platform. You don't have to download the entire thing. You can go onto online and browse and use the platform. But you can also download our apps on either iOS or Android and trade from your mobile phone. Now, our innovation was that we introduced a Naira platform. What has happened since we've introduced the platform? Since introduction, we have close to 10,000 active clients who are currently trading. Now, those clients previously traded with US dollars.
Those clients
yes.
are very active on the
Very
platform.
active. You know, they previously traded with US dollars. In our first year when we did launch, most of our clients traded with our MT4 platform because that's what they're familiar with. Now, we've got a very, very robust education system, both in our office here and in our academy in Ikeja, as well as online, as I mentioned earlier. The difficulty, and that's the major difficulty in financial technology, with all the innovations that are happening, is changing consumer behavior. People are used to a certain thing, familiar with a certain thing. When you introduce a new product, it's important, in fact, it's imperative that the general populace and the clientele which you're hoping to seek, the avenues put in place to make them understand the product, to make them understand how it makes their life easier. Initially, when we launched the cloud trade platform, the Naira platform, no matter how many times we told the clients that, you know, this is a much more robust platform, you don't have to change money over, you can trade in real time and you can trade on your mobile phone, it was still difficult. Then we emphasized on going on an education, using our education to ensure we get to the client.
On
and
the
things,
platform?
Yeah, well, not on the platform, offline. Because as I keep saying with Africa, it's important that everyone bears in mind that Africa is online and offline. You cannot be a financial technology company and hope to do all your business online because, not as I mentioned to you, only 24% of the populace have access to phones that you can download apps. So you've got to do a bit of online and offline, meaning you've got to be intentional in expressing to your clientele exactly the proposition of your offer. You can't just advertise and think that they would come. You've got to go out there and explain to them in detail why you think your service and your platform is better than whatever platform or service they're currently using. You've got to make them understand, as I mentioned earlier, it has to be transparent, right? It has to be personalized. Now, how do you personalize a platform? Well, you do that by having sensational sales managers and a brilliant education team that goes in to find out the general needs and levels of every client which we have to ensure that we can provide an education system that is perfect for that clientele. In addition to that, you have to continuously hold their hand and keep them well informed of how things happen in global markets. Because what you're doing here is you're introducing a brand new product that has never been done before. You know, it's like giving a child a new tool without explaining how it should be used. And the beautiful thing about technology is the more they use the product, the easier it gets. In very, very short time, and this is one of the things that FinTech has done. In the past, this would have been a very expensive training exercise. It would have taken a lot of time for it to be done. But right now, at any point in time, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m., whenever it's suitable for you, you can go onto a website, download a podcast or a recording, a pre-recording, and watch exactly what you need to watch. You can come in if you can come in. We've made it very flexible. And also, in addition to that, what that does is it increases the interest in the product, which in terms increases the size of the market. So we start off with the most important thing, with everything. The most important thing is not even the technology. The most important thing is the client.
Okay.
It's the client. It's the client. You have to understand who you're serving before you go out and serve. And these are that in particular is one of the most exciting things that financial technology has enabled us to do. Now, in the past, as I'm sure you can imagine, it would be expensive in the past to go and find out what it is the client wants, right? Right. And then before you make it, I mean, Ford, the gentleman that gave us Ford Motors, had this fantastic expression. He said, back then, if you asked the general populace, what would they want? They would say they want faster horses. No one would have said they wanted a car. They would have said faster horses. Now, that was a time when it was very, very difficult to engage with the general populace. Now, it is easy. At no point in time in human history can I go onto this thing called the internet and send a message or pass my view on something called Twitter, and the entire world could have access to that. So which means it's been easier and cheaper to communicate with your clientele. So if it's cheaper and easier to communicate with your clientele, it makes perfect sense to engage with the clientele before you develop a product. Because the product is not going to be used by yourself. It's going to be used by the clientele.
Well, let me quickly come in here.
Yes.
With your experience of the Eagle global market, if you compare some of the startup technologies that we have in Nigeria at the moment, and some of the fintech founders, startups that we have in Nigeria, if you compare it to other clients, so how do you rate it? Other clients, other
places,
technologies, other places,
yes,
like US, Canada, and Europe, and all of that.
Yes.
And so, how would you assess the level of growth, development?
Well, first and foremost, I'm not mincing my words here. I would say everyone that has done well in financial technology in Africa is a hero. Is a hero without a doubt. I'll give you some basic differences. Now, nobody in the West has to deal with the issues of power. Nobody in the West has to deal with the most important issue when you want to develop a product and technology, which is cost and price, size of markets. In Nigeria, we have so many issues and so many things to deal with. So, I mean, it is enormous. So even to be operational here is amazing. To be profitable is completely something else. So I believe all the gentlemen operating in the financial technology space and in the startup space are doing amazing things. I mean, the government is doing what they can do to support the space and provide infrastructure, but they're doing amazing things. Because you have to remember, 10 years ago, this was non-existent.
That's right.
You know, we have had some very intelligent minds come across in an area where at a time nobody really believed. I mean, I would give you an example. This is a true example of financial technology. So when we speak to all the money bags, the people that can afford, the wealthy in Nigeria, you've got to remember that most of these gentlemen built their wealth over a considerable time. They have worked for 15, 20 years, they have gone to universities and they've done all these things and they've worked hard. Now, a 23-year-old will show up in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. And the 23-year-old is going to show up with a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and he's going to tell you that he's got this application or he's got this technology company that he believes can change the world. And he needs $5 million for it. Now the African gentleman is looking at him. I mean, he's not saying anything, but at the back of his head, he's thinking, you need $5 million to go and do what? You know? So there's not a general, the understanding is getting better. Much better. Without a doubt, it's getting better. But that is where we need those that can afford to finance innovative ideas, Africans that can afford to finance innovative ideas, to be a bit more open-minded and to lay stake. But the entrepreneurs and the people that are operating within the climate are doing sensational things under the circumstances which we have. And we have seen it grow enormously. And we've seen a number of foreign investors invest in a number of these companies, some raising 13 million, 8 million, 10 million. You know, some have been around for 8 years, some have been around for 3, 4 years. So they're doing really well and it's growing. It's getting bigger and bigger, every day it's getting bigger. The more interest, the bigger it's getting.
Okay, you are a player in this market.
Yes.
In this sector, let me put it that way. So apart from, you mentioned about infrastructure, some of the problems facing the sector or those players in the market.
Yes.
Apart from the power issue and all of that, is there any core challenge that, looking at your experience, that the fintech, all right, or the sector faces at the moment?
Honestly, Frank, it's infrastructure. So if you think about it, with sufficient power, would increase access to the internet. Sufficient power would increase how I reach the general populace, right? Now with power, just with power, the general populace can build on that. I mean, the little things. How do I charge my mobile phone if I have a mobile phone? You know, how do I access all this information, all this education that these financial technology companies are giving us to make me understand the sector? How do I access it? So it would be like operating in a silo where I'm here developing all this technology for myself and the few people that have power. Whereas we have the major parts of the populace that don't have access to power. That's one. Funding is a big one. It's a huge one. Most of the most successful financial technology companies in Africa have been funded by European and American companies. You know, we have to put together the idea and the concept, and then we travel abroad to go convince them to invest. I mean, that's, again, changing because a number of Nigerian and Africans are now investing in the sector. But with funding would enable innovators to innovate. But without funding, the idea and the concept is something that is in your mind that is never put to action. But like I said, with these difficulties, we are still striving forward, and we're still trying to be innovative and trying to use technology to the best possible way with all these difficulties. So with an improvement, I'm not saying it to be completely, improvement in power supply, improvements in infrastructure, you know, we're just at the very early stages of what financial technology can do to the economy. So we're looking at a very exciting decade for Africa, for Nigeria going forward. The more people take on technology, and we've also got to remember, we've just come out of the worst recession in 25 years.
That's right.
And the fintech sector has grown through that. Imagine what it would do when we go through a boom.
Okay.
You know?
Let me quickly come in here.
Yes.
What do you suppose is the future of the Nigerian financial system? Of course, you talked about you're developing a platform which is about to, you know, will be launched soon, anytime soon. You said so earlier. So, looking at your experience at eGlobal Markets, what do you think is the future? Perhaps you want to give us that description.
It is ridiculously exciting. The possibilities are limitless. Let's go through this. Let me give you an example. So you see the possibilities. I don't think up to, I'm not particularly sure, so I'll be careful before I quote some things. I don't think up to 10% of the general populace are insured. I don't think up to 10% of us have stockbroking accounts. I don't know what the population or the number is that have bank accounts, the amount of people that have access to capital. So what we're saying here is, you think about it as a football team. You're going out with, you're not even going out with your best 11, right? You're going out with probably your worst 11. No, not even your worst 11. You're going out playing with 5 players, right? That's what's happening. We are operating under our capability. You know, the amount of people involved in the financial services sector is very, very small. The minute you increase that number of people in that sector, you'll find costs will be reduced significantly because I've got a bigger, a bigger playing field. Now, it has been difficult, as we mentioned, and we had this conversation off air, that I cannot blame a bank or a brokerage firm, because they're profitable, they're answerable to their shareholders. And they would stay and they would serve a clientele where they would generate a profit from. So in years gone by, them going into rural areas might not be profitable for them, because one client in a prosperous area would be the equivalent of 1,000 clients in a non-prosperous area. That's right. But what technology has done is enabled us to now want to involve everyone. So if we're operating in an economy that's been underperforming and not operating at its potential, I see the amount of people that will be investing in Nigerian stocks and shares would increase dramatically. I mean, at AOA Investment Group, financial technology and startups is something that we pay a lot of attention to. Eagle Global Markets is our third financial technology company which we've invested in, and it's been mind-blowing. Because if you think about it, this is trading global markets with Naira. What I've learned from Eagle Global Markets are 2 very important things, and it's something that we should all bear in mind for the financial services sector. So if you think about it, we are approaching the general populace to trade Google, Apple, oil, orange juice, Forex pairs, the DAX, the Dow, with Naira. Means it's a very, very niche product, right? It's a very niche product. The amount of people that trade it are small. But what we from a Nigerian point of view, compared to stocks and shares. Now, in this very small number, in the 2.5 years in which we've been serving the country, in this small number, we have found our view of the general populace and the general retail client has changed considerably. Because the level of skill and understanding of financial and global markets by the general layman, which we thought was the general layman on the street, is mind-blowing. You know, they're talking support resistance levels in oil, you know, in forex pairs, in indice pairs. They're telling you what the Federal Reserve is doing. They're telling you what the European Central Bank is doing. You know, there's a gentleman that doesn't have an MBA, possibly not a university degree, but that's what the internet has done. With the power of the internet, with the focus and the appetite, you sit down in front of the computer and you spend an hour, you will be amazed what you can learn. Your level of understanding and knowledge can change if you have that focus. We have educational degrees, MBAs now being offered online. You know? So with the internet, the general populace are much smarter, and that is what we've learned with Eagle Global Markets. Because amongst our clientele, you know, these are people that I would normally have thought have very little, they're not financially savvy. It's been mind-blowing. It's been an eye-opening experience. It's one of those things that has told us that we are, the retail market is arguably much bigger than we have conceived it to be. And their ability to learn new things, it's much higher than we had previously thought. So if you're able to provide a product for a retail client and explain how he's meant to use it to, you know, aid him, because that's the important thing with financial technology. It's not technology for the sake of technology. It has to be technology to improve a client's experience. So in our case, Eagle Global Markets, what we're saying is you can now use Naira to trade oil. In the past, you wouldn't. You've seen movements in oil, movements in the DAX. I mean, since President Trump has come in, we've seen a rally, we've seen a drop. Now, in the past, it's just something we discussed, so you had to trade in US dollars.
Okay, but just before we round up, of course, I know that the Nigerian market is quite huge, looking at the numbers that we have at hand. And of course, coming out of recession, we've seen the macroeconomic indicators, you know, a bit stable.
Yes.
And of course, we're seeing some of these indicators now. Okay, you're parting short. What do you, going forward now, what do you think we should begin to look at the moment?
Are we talking about the financial technology or Nigeria as an economy in general?
Nigerian economy, looking at it from the
Yes, I am. As I mentioned earlier, and you know, I am extremely optimistic for Africa and for Nigeria. Nigeria being, like I've said, we've not arguably had the best policies. Yes, the government inherited a lot; they could have done better. But the reality is, we're an oil economy, and the price of oil fell considerably. We have just come out of the worst recession in 25 years. So, I mean, some would say we could still, you know, it could get worse. Some would say it could get worse. But looking at it, I mean, we've seen oil rally all the way up to 80, meaning the amount of money that the government has at their disposal is much higher. A number of things that the central bank has done has improved the economy. So if we're able to get across the 2019 elections, which, you know, that always has, you know, fear on what would happen, we're able to get through that, I think the possibilities for growth in the economy is enormous. For financial technology, you have to understand that financial technology aims to provide services to people at a cheaper rate. You know, services to people, to innovate, to provide services to people much cheaper, much more transparent. So I'm expecting there to be a much bigger boom of entrance from financial technology going forward. I think we're just at the very, very early stages. I think we're going to learn in the very, very near future how innovative the Nigerian mind is if they're given the opportunity to shine. And from what I've seen so far, the future looks extremely, extremely bright, extremely good for us, and extremely good for the financial technology sector.
Let's leave it there.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your time. The pleasure is all mine.
For your time. Well, I've been speaking with Gbite Oduneye. He's CEO of AOA Investment Group and co-founder Eagle Global Markets.